Welcome to The Writer's Dream. This is a show where authors could talk about how they write their books, how they publish their books, and how they market their books. We are on Facebook. Just search The Writer's Dream. If you have a question for us, please ask us the question through Facebook. We are also on YouTube. Just search The Writer's Dream. It's very easy. Today's guest is Harriet Tramer, and Harriet comes to us all the way from Ohio. And we're very pleased to have her. She is the author of Racing to Heaven. So Harriet, welcome.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you here. So tell us about your book.
Well, the interesting thing about this book is how it can be interpreted in just so many different ways. You could interpret it as, well, this is what really happened to this girl, and it's an adventure with mystical horses and all kinds of things you wouldn't really expect to happen. Or you could interpret it as just simply being her imagination.
So give us like a summary of the story.
Summary of the story. The best way I could summarize the story, the girl, yes, you could call her right there, is kind of, as are many teens, a misfit adolescent. Her parents are preoccupied with their lives, successful in their own way, but not super successful as parents. And she needs a little shaking up, so they send her to her aunt's ranch where she meets up with a mysterious horse, Big Red. Now she goes back, she takes horse lessons, riding lessons, although she had always considered herself and others had considered her unathletic and clumsy. Somehow she has a talent with these horses.
She's like a horse whisperer.
Right. Yeah. And again, you don't know, is she imagining this? Is this wish fulfillment or just what's going on?
What's her name?
What's her name?
What is her name? The girl.
Brenda.
Brenda, okay.
But the name doesn't come in.
Yeah, I read that. I noticed that. I read, some of it.
Because I didn't want. She's writing it possibly from a spiritual realm, at which point her name is not super important.
Right.
So
can I read the first part? Just the first couple of paragraphs to
be my guest.
Give our listeners, our viewers, really kind of an idea of what's going on here. The place where I am now. This is Racing to Heaven by Harriet Tramer, Chapter 1. The place where I am now goes by so many different names: Nirvana, heaven, paradise, that I long ago gave up on trying to decide what name fits it best. And I also gave up trying to figure out something else. How long it has been since I fell off a horse just seconds after I won the biggest race of my life and ended up here. So it seems like she's in heaven, doesn't it? She seems like this is like the afterlife. That's the impression that she
That's
has.
the impression. But again, it may just be her imagination. She goes through, she meets up with the mysterious horses at a stable, then she goes to a racetrack, she meets up with a mysterious character, Roberto, who's probably in this country illegally. He starts riding horses. The horses get faster and wilder, till finally she is on one and she falls through the track. And that's where kind of it goes from the ending to the beginning, which is where she is now that she's talking about.
So in other words, when we start this book, it's after she falls off the horse, but then you tell the story of her life.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so tell me about why you think it's spiritual.
Why do I think it's spiritual?
Why did you write that?
I think it's spiritual because for several reasons. Number one, she may be writing it from a spiritual realm. Number two, one interpretation of spirit is talents coming out you wouldn't expect a person to have. Here's this overweight girl, clumsy, slow. She gets on these horses, and all of a sudden she's going at a racetrack. Some of the most athletically, how can I say, challenging thing you could possibly do. Sitting on top of a horse with really nobody protecting you, and everybody maybe even trying to bash into you. I mean, even a quarterback has blockers.
That's true. That's true.
There may be something spiritual in the sense of what she's evolving and able to do.
Okay, so what gave you the idea to write this story?
What gave me the idea?
What in your life?
I don't know if there's anything 100%, particularly in my life. I mean, people have asked, well, is that girl like you? The answer is no way.
But you do ride. You do.
Yeah, I do ride. I think what gave me the idea is just a strong connection. Often you have even a spiritual connection between girls and horses.
Many people have said that, yeah.
And there's a reason for that, really. If you are a teenage girl and you're feeling bad because you think you're not athletic, you're not keeping up with things, okay, you might take up running. Well, you're only going to go so fast. Maybe you can do a mile. I'm just putting in a figure in 10 minutes. You keep going, going, going. Maybe you can do it in 8.5. But it's only going to go so fast. You're only going to jump so high if that's not your particular proclivity, talent. You're only going to be so good at soccer or field hockey or, whatever it is. Horses is something a little different because you can get on a horse, and if that horse can go twice as fast as the horse you were on previously, you're going twice as fast.
Now, the star horse of the book is Big Red. And when she meets Big Red, is Big Red broken? Is Big Red wild? Is Big Red, he's a wild?
Wild. Nobody else could ride it. She's suddenly this overweight, confused, troubled adolescent, somehow jumps over barbed wire, gets to the horse, and starts riding him around. Now everybody gets hysterical. What are you doing on that horse? Well, they lead him out to a canyon hundreds of miles away. He comes back and she proceeds to ride him around. Then she goes to a stable and rides a spunky little pony. But at night she sneaks in and rides Diamond, who may in fact be Big Red, but he's black. Then she gets to the stable, to the racetrack, and there's a whole long litany of different horses.
Did you have, when you were writing this, did you have a purpose in mind for girls? Did you want to show girls that they could find a thing that was going to make them bring out their inner beauty, their inner strength, their inner person?
If I had any purpose, it was to show a certain universality, because people might look at this girl and say, well, she's wild, she's this, she's that. But so much emotionally that she encountered is just so typical. She meets this mysterious character, Roberto, who is probably, like I said, in this country illegally, who knows how he's getting all these horses for her to ride. Now, a part of her knows, I've got to get away from this man. He's dangerous. I'm not obligated to ride these horses in these races. What's going on here? I don't have to do this. Part of her wants to push away from him, and a part of her just can't, because he's making her feel special. In her head, she knows that she hasn't this great athletic talent, hasn't this, hasn't that. She's putting her on these horses, and she's shining, and she can't pull away from that. Now, how common is that you have somebody you're attracted to, I mean you generically, who you know is not doing you any good, but a part of them is making you feel special, and you're torn unbelievably because you know you've got to get away from them for your sanity, and you just can't do it.
Well, that's a theme with a lot of women. A lot of women they're excitement addicts. They're drawn to a certain type of man who they know is really not good for them, but they're drawn because of the very reason you said it. They feel special, they feel alive. And obviously when she's on that horse, she feels alive, something that she never had with anybody else or with anything else. So I think that's a very attractive thing, especially for teenage girls who are trying to find their identity. They're trying to find what is it that makes them special. And let's face it, the world is not really easy for teenage girls. There's so much in the way of images that they are kind of expected to live up to. And I think this is a great theme for girls.
And it's what makes you very vulnerable.
Right, exactly. But this is a great story for girls to read, to understand that being special is something that you have to find, but you have to be careful how you do it.
You've got to find it yourself.
Yeah, oh yes, absolutely.
Not easy. Now, another element in here is the idea of, how can I say this, anybody trying to find what will make them special, not just a teenage girl, but anybody. There's also an element in here, you could almost compare it to Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, because she dreamed of a place she wanted to go to. Now, she decided there's no place like home. She might have been totally enthralled by Oz and big-eyed about it, the whole thing. But she says there's no place like home. Now, you got to decide for yourself if you read the book, which I hope people will. Did this girl find a place that really is better than where she came from?
Well, certainly the journey that she goes on is something that, I mean, we don't really know from your explanation whether she's in a coma in the beginning of the book, or if she's in heaven, or if she's just dreaming about this. This is what happened to me, and I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you what I went through to get to where I am now. So she could very well be alive and just be writing in her journal about it. And so she needs to decide, I think the reader does too, whether the journey was worth it.
Now, it's also possible that she found her peace, and that's the spiritual realm she is in, because she went on the journey with these horses, she fell, she was injured, she didn't go to heaven as we might think of it, another realm, but she found her peace. A lot of different interpretations.
Yeah, well, she won the race, and maybe that was her goal. So it's for our interpretation. But life is one journey after the other, isn't it? I never see it as one journey. I always see it as a bunch of little journeys that you go on, and each journey is a learning experience, and it leads you to open yourself to the next journey. But if you never open yourself, you never open your mind, and you never take a chance, you never go on a journey. And that I think is a very important lesson there too. Would you like me to read one of your reviews? You have a really spectacular review in here.
Be my guest.
Okay. All right, too bad I didn't bring my glasses. Oh well, okay. This is by Diane Donovan, and it was in the 2014 issue of Midwest Book Review. Young adult horse stories are usually pretty straightforward and even hold quite predictable plots. Girl loves horse and or boy. Girl longs to ride own horse. Girl overcomes adversity, and in the end, girl gets horse and or boy. Not so Racing to Heaven, which is a horse of another color and provides a heart-pounding race into the outside of reality to keep young adult and adult readers guessing. Yes, it's a racetrack saga, and yes, it revolves around a young female jockey. But take those elements and run with them, because that's what Harriet Tramer does as she presents the story of an unstable teen who demonstrates an innate talent for psychic communication with horses. So it's a new age novel about a supernatural, right? Not really, because the protagonist and her equine concerns are firmly rooted in the vivid reality of horse racing circles. Then it's a horsey story, right? In a manner of speaking, because the progression is anything but your usual horse saga. Think magic. think spiritual connections. Take a classic good versus evil story and then turn it on end with a splash of intrigue and action. Stir the cauldron of complexity, then season liberally with discussions of how the protagonist comes to realize that being a jockey is in her future. Hint, via supernatural means. It was really a great review.
Thank you.
So what led you to writing?
I've been around horses a lot of my life, and I've seen the impact they can have. When I started writing it, I don't know if I really thought about all these spiritual realms. I just was thinking an unstable girl and what happens to her. And my head started working in that way. And also the universal thought, like we said before, of being attracted to somebody. In the book, it's a girl to a somewhat older boy, but it could be anybody who you realize isn't good for you and you just cannot seem to pull away from.
Yes, as we said, that's a common theme with, I taught teenagers for a long time and saw a lot of that. And you have a teaching background as well.
Yeah, but not teenagers.
You teach
College.
in college now, so you consider them adults.
But these are universal themes.
Yeah.
I mean, these things happen not just to a teenager.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. You're right. What was the most challenging part of writing this book?
Most challenging part of writing this book wasn't writing it, rewriting. I mean, you go over, oh my goodness, do I really still have some miswords there? Oh my goodness, I've been through this 3 times and there's still some miswords here. What's going on?
Well, as you know, I interview a lot of authors on this show, and the 2 things that they're always stuck on is the editing. First, it's the editing, and so many people will say you have to get a good editor. As much as you edit, you have to get a good editor. And the other thing, of course, is the marketing of the book. But did you ever have writer's block?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I would not say that I did.
I find that if I really have a story to tell, and I like my character, and I like my setting, that the story just flows. Generally, my writer's block comes from, and it's not really, I don't think, writer's block, but it's some glitch in the plot. And usually what I do is I move away from that part of the book, go to another chapter, and then come back to it, and it usually solves itself. What was the best part of writing?
Best part of writing it?
Writing the book, yeah.
I would say starting it, feeling that I got a good start. That would catch people and be an easing into the rest of the book. I would say that was the best part.
Okay, did you like your character?
Yes.
You like Brenda? Yeah, okay. I think that's important. Well, I should say, I think you should have an emotional attachment to your main character, whether it be love or hate. You should have some feeling about it, because I think then that comes through in the story. So how did you publish? Did you self-publish?
I did, but I now have it republished by Biblio Publishing in Columbus.
Great, that's great. Now, who did you self-publish with? Do you remember?
Create Space.
Okay, good. Yeah, a lot of people are using Create Space now. Did you find that process easy to navigate through, or was it?
Yeah, because I had someone who helped me get it, the graphics of it.
Yeah, that's what I understand. I didn't use Create Space, but I understand that it works best if you have somebody work on the book so that your manuscript is absolutely ready to be published, edited and laid out. And
this is not a hand-holding situation.
Right. And who did you cover?
The same person who I had do the layout.
So it was a graphic designer? Yeah. And the cover is important. It's what people look at. So marketing, what do you do for marketing?
Well, I'm on this show now. I've been on a lot of radio shows. I have a website. I'm going on more radio shows. I'm doing some personal appearances.